for God's sake, why is it we can't learn to live together?
You're right, Norman.
Sir, those were just beautiful. I am fascinated. I would like to see the whole movie.
Well, by all means.
Where can we see the rest of them?
At my apartment.
Or at this theater under the title, The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming.
The Russians are coming! 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 The Russians are coming!
The dark campaign of fake news, you know, that's still ongoing. We see even someone like myself get swept up in all of this. Right. You know, when people like me are speaking on behalf of process, people spin it to suit their needs. And I think it may be that the Russians are behind even such fake news today. There's a total distortion of what I said and what I was talking about. I was talking about the fact that I was outside of government. I had no access to intelligence on this whatsoever. But I was concerned because I knew how the Russians operate, and I was reading these reports about them hacking into the elections and then giving the information to Wikipedia, and that Trump team people were going to Moscow, and, you know, there was a lot of report. It may be that the Russians are behind even such fake news. Maybe that the Russians are behind even such fake news. Maybe that the Russians are behind even such fake news. Because I knew how the Russians operate. I knew how the Russians operate. I knew how the Russians operate. And
How concerned am I? On a scale of 1 to 100, I'm concerned 100. If a foreign power of any kind is trying to interfere in our basic democratic functioning, that's all alert should be on that. And that it's someone like Vladimir Putin who is clearly messing around the rest of the world to try to advance Russia's interests, then it just doubles my concern. This is an area right now that I think goes way beyond partisanship. I'm hearing from both Democratic and Republican senators who are saying they are very concerned and believe we need a full and thorough investigation. Sure, right now the Russians may have helped the Republicans, but I think everyone understands next time around it could be different. We don't want the Russians determining the outcome of our elections. You know, I am very concerned about a president-elect who doesn't seem to want to attend his own intelligence briefings, who doesn't want to hear from our intelligence community. You know, if you don't learn things, then you make terrible mistakes. And I want Donald Trump to be fully informed by our intelligence agencies and to listen very seriously to what they have to say. I believe that they offer information not filtered by politics, but filtered by the reality of a really tough world out there. And that it's someone like Vladimir Putin who is clearly messing around the rest of the world to try to advance Russia's interests. And that it's someone like Vladimir Putin who is clearly messing around the rest of the world to try to advance Russia's interests. And that it's someone like Vladimir Putin who is clearly messing around the rest of the world to try to advance Russia's interests.
They are talking about calling for I'll let them make their own announcement, but to take us to a place where we find out, did a foreign government, and I know that we did, what is the role of a foreign government in undermining our election? That would have been a necessary investigation even if Hillary Clinton had won. It isn't about who wins or not. It's about what the interference is. Every day, emails came out from the Democratic side. I frankly think there could have been more aggressive coverage of the fact that a foreign government was hacking our committees, but it just was like something that was going on, but the fact is something awful was going on. What was interesting to me is that the director of the FBI did not want to sign that consensus report because it was too close to the election and he didn't want to affect the election, but he had no trepidation or hesitation or qualm about putting forth a letter that said might be insignificant 12 days before the election. Part of the Russian agenda is to undermine democracy, not just in our country, but in other countries as well, to hack, to alter, and to disclose, and it's just not right. And I think that it's shameful that this was able to go on so evidently, a foreign government undermining our democracy without more being said about it at the time. Part of the Russian agenda is to undermine democracy. Part of the Russian agenda is to undermine democracy. Part of the Russian agenda is to undermine democracy.
Mr. President, if there's objection, and I note the senator from Kentucky on the floor, I will say before I read this, if there's objection, you are achieving the objectives of Vladimir Putin. You're achieving the objectives of trying to dismember this small country that has already been the subject of attempted coup. I have no idea why anyone would object to this, except that I will say, if they object, they are now carrying out the desires and ambitions of Vladimir Putin, and I do not say that lightly.
The Russians are coming! 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 The Russians are coming!
One of the best in a long time, says Life magazine. The funniest American comedy to come along, says the Saturday Review. 4 stars. You will almost die laughing, but you will live to tell others to see this wild and wonderful comedy. Excruciatingly funny. New York Daily News. A hilarious troupe telling a hilarious tale in a hilarious way. Go. Enjoy. New York Times. Alan Arkin deserves an Oscar, says Time magazine. Wildly shaken by laughter, we feel it our bounden duty to warn our readers that they may never be quite the same again, says an editorial in the Washington Daily News.